And we're back. Rush Limbaugh with Open Line Friday on Tuesday. Whatever you want to talk about today is fine. Have at it. Telephone number 800-282-2882. Email address lrushbaugh@eibnet.com. Folks, look. We lost a huge case in the Supreme Court. There is no silver lining. What now has to happen is we regroup. We have to inform as many fellow citizens as possible what is in store for them. Their freedom, their health care, their lives, the lives of their children and grandchildren, if this stands. And we have to stop deluding ourselves if we are to beat this back. We can fight to repeal Obamacare. And we must. But we have to win the next election big. And we can't tolerate any Republican capitulating in advance of this fight or accepting any aspect of Obama. Folks, I'm sorry. Realville. It's all got to go. This business, I like keeping my kid on pre-existing. We're not even talking about insurance if we're going to give people with pre-existing conditions insurance. We can deal with those two things separately and in a much smaller way after we toss this whole thing. We've got to toss the whole thing. We don't need 2,700 pages, constitution-altering, life-altering changes to our freedom and liberty for those two small little things that can be fixed individually by themselves. Same thing with the uninsured. If Chief Justice Roberts had wanted to throw this back to Congress, you know what he would have done? He would have repealed it. And then he would have said, if you really want it, you go back and do it right. If he had been paying attention to the Constitution. If he really wanted to throw this back to the legislative branch, where the elected representatives of the people take care of this, he would have repealed it, and he would have said to the elected representatives of the people, you presented us with an unconstitutional bill, and none of it stands, and you go back and you fix it. Instead, he upheld it. I don't care how, penalty, tax, what, he upheld it. It's the law of the land. And now we're told there's a silver lining. We've got to go in. And that's the way it ought to be anyway, Rush. Or people ought to be. Well, we're dealing with corruption everywhere we turn in Washington, D.C. And we're dealing in some people with an attitude that's less than fully developed and fully committed to overturning this and repealing it. Chief Justice Roberts upheld this. He didn't throw it back to the legislative branch so the elected representatives of the people could do it again. He upheld it. It is the law of the land. The damage that was done to the Constitution cannot be fixed by repealing Obamacare. That's going to stand no matter what we end up doing with Obamacare. Chief Justice Roberts and the four other liberal activists on the court have blown yet another giant hole through the Constitution. How do we fix that? Well, there's a way. There's a way. We insist on originalists being nominated to the court, period. But that is for another time. He doesn't need to comment on any case when he's nominated any prospective judge, but he's got to tell us who he is or she is. We have our work cut out for us, and these semantic games and distractions, self-delusions create confusion and not going to get us anywhere. Again, CNN poll. Supreme Court decision had no impact on the presidential race so far. That's right. Well, we're too busy arguing semantics. It's a tax or it's a penalty. Great political opportunity. The truth is, the law was upheld and everybody's screwed. Biggest problem we have is that nobody's going to get screwed till starting in 2014 or 2015. That's when the screw job implements. Nobody's going to get screwed between now and the election. That's our biggest problem. Everything we're going to be warning people about is not going to be happening. That's a big, big job. You're going to have rationing. We're going to have price controls. We're going to have red tape, government control. We're all going to end up being treated shabbily, except for the rich. The rich will still have direct pay medical care. Don't care what you think. You think we're all going to be equally miserable in this. You think we're all going to be equally penalized, equally in line or what? No. The rich are still going to get, just like they do in Europe, just like they do in Cuba, just like wherever there is single-payer socialized medicine, the rich don't play according to those rules because money talks. It's going to be that way here. The line that exists between us and them, the other side, could not be more clear. If our side would just stop blurring it. This thing goes against everything anybody who says they're conservative believes in, down to the smallest amoeba in their body. And if they're not willing to say so, then they're not going to be worth anything in this fight. There's not one genuine, real, true conservative who wants any part of this in any way, shape, manner, or form. And certainly nobody who reveres and loves the Constitution wants any part of it. But they won in court. There is no silver lining waiting to surprise us all someday down the road that Justice Roberts snuck in there because he's really crafty and smart and really ended up screwing the Democrats, Rush, and you just went. There's no such thing in this bill that does that. Obamacare stands. It is the law of the land. The Constitution was turned on its head. I think there's some people in denial. I think there's some people who really think this hasn't happened yet. And the election in November, that's when it's really going to be cemented, Rush, as to whether it's happened or not. Well, not necessarily. We could win the House, win the Senate, win the White House. And then if there are still people around who don't think we can get rid of it, I don't want to be around when that happens. Because that's not what the people who are going to vote for Republicans in November are going to want to hear from Republicans in January. Obamacare stands. It's the law of the land. The Constitution was turned on its head, and we cannot address this, and we cannot rally more people to our cause if we continue to delude ourselves that there's a silver lining or that we can turn it all back by convincing people it's the big tax. I mean, we can do that. That's fine, but it's to miss the point. To talk about whether it's a tax or a penalty is nothing more than being granted the opportunity to avoid the substance, while making it look like you're devoted to the substance. We cannot defeat Obamacare if we do not explain how it destroys the current healthcare system and the individual.